The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Maya Chen meticulously arranged her color-coded notebooks. On the lab bench, her fingers trembling slightly as she checked her watch for the third time into minutes. Across the room, Jake Rodriguez slouched against the doorframe, his laptop bag slung carelessly over one shoulder. Dark eyes scanning the room with an infuriating air of confidence that made Maya's jaw clench. Dr. Peterson's voice cut through the nervous chatter of 30 advanced biochemistry. Students, your final project will account for 40% of your grade. You'll be researching novel approaches to cancer cell targeting. And he paused, a slight smile playing at his lips. I've taken the liberty of assigning partners. Maya's stomach dropped. She had specifically requested to work alone, submitting a formal petition 3 weeks ago outlining her superior organizational skills and proven track record of academic excellence. Her 4.0 GPA spoke for itself, and she had meticulously planned every aspect of her pre-med trajectory since freshman year. Chen and Rodriguez, Dr. Peterson announced, his eyes twinkling with what Maya could only interpret as sadistic pleasure. Jake pushed off from the wall and sauntered over, his worn sneakers squeaking against the polished floor. Maya watched him approach. Noting the casual way he wore his success, everyone knew he was some kind of programming prodigy who had already been recruited by 3 major tech companies. Despite his apparent allergy to formal study habits, "Looks like we're stuck together, princess," Jake said, dropping into the seat beside her with a lazy grin that revealed a slightly crooked incisor. "It's Maya," she replied tersely, her pen clicking in rapid succession. "And I prefer to establish ground rules immediately. We meet Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at precisely 7 p.m. in the library's quiet study section. I've already created a preliminary research timeline that—" "Ho, slow down there," Jake interrupted, pulling out his phone and sprawling back in his chair. "Look, I get that you're all about the schedules and the color coding and whatever, but maybe we should figure out what we're actually doing before you plan out the next 3 months. Maya's nostrils flared. She had researched 17 potential approaches to their assigned topic, cross-referenced current literature, and identified the 3 most promising avenues for original research. Meanwhile, Jake was probably planning to coast on natural talent and last-minute cramming, just like every other brilliant slacker she'd encountered. "Fine," she said, her voice clipped. "What do you suggest?" Jake's fingers flew across his phone screen, and within seconds he had pulled up a research paper that Maya had bookmarked just that morning. "I was thinking we could explore machine learning applications in predicting cellular response to targeted therapies. I've been working on some algorithms that might be applicable." Despite herself, Maya felt her eyebrows rise. The paper was from a prestigious journal, published just 2 weeks ago. She cleared her throat, reassessing her lab partner with reluctant interest. "That's actually not terrible," she admitted. "High praise from the queen of biochemistry," Jake replied, but his tone had lost its mocking edge. "Tell you what, meet me at the coffee shop on 5th tomorrow night, 7:30. We can hash out the details somewhere that doesn't smell like formaldehyde." Maya opened her mouth to suggest the library instead, then caught herself. Perhaps a more casual environment would help them establish a productive working relationship. "Fine, but I'm bringing my laptop and my research folders. Wouldn't expect anything less," Jake said, standing and shouldering his bag. As he walked away, he called over his shoulder, "And Maya, bring your appetite. This is going to take a while." 3 weeks into their partnership, Maya found herself arriving at their coffee shop meetings 15 minutes early, not because of her usual punctuality obsession, but because she had started looking forward to watching Jake work. There was something mesmerizing about the way his fingers danced across the keyboard, translating complex biological processes into elegant code, while she provided the scientific framework he needed. "Okay, run the simulation one more time," Maya said, leaning closer to peer at his laptop screen. She was close enough to catch the faint scent of his cologne, something warm and cedar-like that made her stomach flutter in a way that had nothing to do with caffeine. The data visualization bloomed across the screen in brilliant blues and greens, showing their algorithm's prediction accuracy climbing steadily. Maya felt Jake's shoulder brush against hers as he adjusted the parameters, and she forced herself to focus on the numbers, rather than the way his proximity made her pulse quicken. 93% accuracy, Jake breathed, his voice filled with genuine excitement. Maya, we might actually have something revolutionary here. She turned to respond and found his face inches from hers, dark eyes bright with enthusiasm. For a moment, the bustling coffee shop faded away, and Maya became acutely aware of the way Jake's lips curved when he smiled, the small scar above his left eyebrow, the way he looked at her like she was the most brilliant person he'd ever met. "We make a good team," she whispered, her carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble. "Yeah," Jake replied softly, his gaze dropping to her lips before snapping back to her eyes. "We do." The spell was broken by Maya's phone buzzing with a reminder about her MCAT prep course. She jerked back, heat flooding her cheeks as she gathered her papers with shaking hands. "I should go," she said, not meeting his eyes. "Early morning tomorrow." But Jake caught her wrist gently as she stood. "Maya, wait. Can we talk about—" "There's nothing to talk about," she interrupted, her voice sharper than she intended. "We're lab partners, that's all." That night, Maya lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the past 3 weeks, somewhere between Jake's patient explanations of machine learning principles and his habit of bringing her favorite vanilla latte without being asked. Her carefully ordered world had shifted off its axis. She had worked too hard and sacrificed too much to let anything derail her plans now. Medical school applications were due in 6 months. Her entire future depended on maintaining focus, on being the perfect candidate she had molded herself to become. But as she finally drifted off to sleep, Maya couldn't shake the memory of Jake's smile, or the way her name sounded different when he said it, not like a label, but like something precious. The next afternoon, Jake was waiting by her usual library carrel when she arrived for her solo study session. "We need to talk," he said simply. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. "Jake, I told you, I know what you told me. But I also know that what happened yesterday wasn't nothing. And I think you know it too." She stared at him, seeing past the casual exterior to the vulnerability in his eyes. Jake Rodriguez, the brilliant programmer who had never met a challenge he couldn't overcome, looked uncertain for the first time since she'd known him. "My entire life is planned out," Maya said finally. "Medical school, residency, specialization. There's no room for complications. And what am I? A complication?" The hurt in his voice made Maya's chest tighten. You're everything I didn't know I wanted, and that terrifies me." 2 months later, Maya stood in Dr. Peterson's office, a thick envelope from Johns Hopkins clutched in her trembling hands. The early acceptance letter represented everything she had worked toward: validation of her sacrifices, proof that her rigid self-discipline had paid off. She should have been ecstatic. Instead, she felt hollow. "Congratulations, Miss Chen," Dr. Peterson said, his smile genuine. "Johns Hopkins rarely offers early acceptance to their accelerated MD-PhD program. You should be very proud." Maya nodded, numbly, her thoughts drifting to Jake. Their project had won the university's undergraduate research prize, with professors from 3 departments requesting copies of their methodology. More importantly, they had won it together. Long nights in the lab had turned into shared meals. Heated debates had become intimate conversations, and somewhere in the process, Maya had fallen completely, irrevocably in love. But Jake had his own envelope, his own impossible opportunity. Google had offered him a position on their AI research team in Mountain View, with a starting salary that made Maya dizzy, and the chance to work on projects that could reshape technology's future. "There's something else," Dr. Peterson continued, pulling Maya from her reverie. "I've been contacted by several research institutions about your work with Mr. Rodriguez. The National Institute of Health is particularly interested in funding continued development of your algorithm." Maya's heart lurched. What kind of funding? The kind that could support to graduate students quite comfortably. "There's talk of establishing a joint program between our computer science and pre-med departments, with you and Mr. Rodriguez as the inaugural fellows." The possibility hung in the air like a lifeline Maya was afraid to grasp. A way to have everything: her medical career, cutting-edge research, and Jake. but it would mean abandoning the security of her carefully laid plans for something uncertain, something that had never been done before. That evening, Maya found Jake on the roof of the science building, their old meeting spot during late-night project sessions. He was staring out at the city lights, his acceptance letter from Google folded and refolded in his hands. "Heard about Hopkins," he said without turning around. "That's incredible, Maya." "Everything you wanted, not everything," she replied quietly, moving to stand beside him. Jake looked at her then, hope and resignation warring in his expression. "Dr. Peterson told me about the NIH thing, joint fellowship, us working together officially. What do you think?" Maya asked, her heart in her throat. "I think it sounds like the biggest risk either of us could take," Jake said slowly. "New program, no guarantee of success. Basically betting our entire futures on something that might not work." Maya nodded, fear and excitement battling in her chest. "Completely illogical. Absolutely terrifying," Jake agreed. They stood in comfortable silence, years of careful planning and safe choices stretching behind them like a bridge. They were considering burning. "You know what's funny?" Jake said finally. 6 months ago, I thought you were the most uptight, impossible person I'd ever met. 6 months ago, I thought you were an arrogant slacker who was going to ruin my GPA." Maya replied with a soft laugh. And now Maya turned to face him fully, memorizing every detail of his face in the moonlight. "Now I think you might be worth risking everything for." Jake's smile was radiant as he reached for her hands. "Even your perfectly planned future, especially." "My perfectly planned future," Maya whispered, and when Jake kissed her, she finally understood the difference between a life that looked perfect on paper and a life that actually was. 3 weeks later, they submitted their joint application to the NIH Fellowship Program, choosing love and uncertainty over safe, separate paths. Their algorithm continued to show promise. Their partnership deepened into something unshakable. And Maya learned that sometimes the best plans were the ones you never saw coming. But as they embarked on this uncharted territory together, one question remained. In a world that often forces us to choose between ambition and love, between security and possibility, is the courage to risk everything for someone actually the most logical choice of all?